What is up, guys? Londrick here, and now I'm back with the Londrick Q&A. So I put the video out a couple of weeks ago, got your guys' questions, and now we're going to do it. So I've got about 14 or 15 sets of questions, so some decent questions, and we're just going to get into it really. First off, I just want to do a quick little channel update of just informing some people about some plans going forward. So obviously I just can't be asked to do full gear previews as predictions because I'm not watching every single AEW show anymore. So if people are wondering if that's coming, it's not. But for the main, I think MJF's probably going to win the AEW title tomorrow night. I'm not going to be doing that, but I am going to be reviewing it on Sunday. I'm not watching it live because I just don't feel like paying the Fight TV pay-per-view money for the show. So yeah, I'm not going to watch it live. I'm going to watch it Sunday morning. Then we're going to do it tomorrow. I've got a special retro Raw review. Look out for that one. And I'm not going to wait. I'll tell you what. What's going to happen next month. I've got a special Raw review, retro Raw review next month as well. If you're thinking it's happened in December, you can probably work out which one it is. But it's a special anniversary one. And then obviously later in the year we're going to do for the matches of the year. I'm only going to do 2 this year. I'm going to do AEW and WWE main roster for just the reason being I've just stopped watching NXT this year. And NXT really isn't about great matches anymore. It's mainly about developing characters and stuff like that. So we're going to have a WWE main roster one and an AEW one, but no New Japan because I've not watched that one regularly either. So that's going to be coming sometime in December. I've got 2 massive slide reviews slide projects planned for 2023. One of them is probably arguably the biggest slide project I've ever done. There you go, that's a nice one. There's going to be 2 special anniversaries in 2023, and I'm going to do massive slide videos to reflect that. And then the next Q&A, when's that one going to be? I've got one in mind for January, and it's going to be a theme one. And the clue is, it's kind of amazing that I've never done it before. It's a theme that you think I would have done before at some point, but I just haven't done. And it also coincides with a special anniversary, so keep your eyes peeled for those. But apart from that, I've got nothing. Obviously the match pick one will keep going. I might do the odd TNA review, but I just don't really feel motivated to do that right now. But anyway, let's just get into the video. Let's get straight into the questions. Some good questions, guys. And we're going to start off with Jimmy Reviews and Archives. Do you think AEW's underutilised Miro? After his miraculous run for the TNT title, he came back and disappeared out of All Out. Oh God, yeah. I mean, it's actually bordering on criminal. What the hell? What has happened to Miro in AEW? You know what I mean? It honestly feels like right now Miro is no better off in AEW than Rusev was in WWE. And it's kind of following a similar pattern. He had this big push, looked like he was going somewhere, and then it's just gone nowhere. Because yeah, he's literally not had a match on TV since All Out. I know originally, like, first time he stopped using, I think he was injured at one point, and then I think he was off filming something. But as far as I'm aware, he's been fit and available for the last several months. And it's criminal, isn't it? I mean, they need guys like Miro. I mean, Miro could, like, why? Especially with, like, Punk being out and all that and shit like that. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, yeah, honestly, I think AEW has done a pretty awful job of Miro over the last several months. I mean, this guy could be a main event player, but I guess Tony Khan just doesn't see it or whatever. But yeah, it's actually been ridiculous, hasn't it? Then we got, how much of an improvement have Judgment Day been since Triple H became in charge of booking? A lot, because it's been down to presentation. It's just kind of weird to me that, like, Edge just flopped so hard as a heel in this last run. Because if you remember, Edge back in his prime, like in mid-2000s, was probably the best heel in the business. And now he's back as a legend and all that, and the face turn just didn't work. But I feel like Finn Balor's been a much better fit for that role than Edge has been. And yeah, like, since Triple H took over, Judgment Day's just been taken a lot more seriously, looked a lot more stronger, and hey, who'd have thought? do that and they might get over a little bit more. But yeah, I think it's just an act that just works with Balor, Damian Priest, Rhea Ripley, and even Dominic's kind of. I think that's a work in progress, to be honest with you. So maybe if they added a tag team in there, I don't know who, but could be anyone really. I think that would help them a little bit more. But yeah, I think it's just all in the presentation and the booking, which has been a lot better since Triple H took over. With the here's one I've got, and then so I'm going to mention this once and then repeat it later on because I've got a few questions like this. With the chemistry he has with the Bloodline, could you see Sami Zayn win the WWE title down the line? No, I don't. I mean, I would like to see it, I guess, but you got to think, like, if they're not going to split the titles again, which there's no evidence right now to suggest they're going to do that, do you really see Sami Zayn being the one to take the title off Roman Reigns? I just don't see it. As over as Sami Zayn is, I just don't feel like him beating Roman Reigns would be credible or believable. Just going to have a drink a second. I just need to drink my coffee there. Because you got to think that whoever it is that beats Roman Reigns is probably going to have a long title reign, like maybe up to SummerSlam, maybe beyond that. And then you think at some point Roman's probably going to get the title back. I mean, the only way I could see it, really, is if they find a way to split the titles, and then Sami goes on to beat whoever the WWE champion is. But if there's only one champion, I just don't see it personally. I just really don't. I mean, it would be nice to see, but I just don't see it. I really don't. I think you're looking at Cody Rhodes. You're probably looking at Seth Rollins having another run of the belt down the line somewhere. And then maybe they put the belt back on Bray Wyatt or something like that. Or whoever. Or anyone who might get a big push. But I just personally don't see it, to be honest with you. If when Ring of Honor structures a weekly program, should it be its own thing, a la what WWE is to NXT, or have it replace an AEW show in brackets, preferably Rampage? I would like it to be its own thing. I mean, this is a big thing that obviously TV contracts and all that, so you can't totally blame Tony Khan if you can't get a TV deal for Ring of Honor yet. If you can't get one, you can't get one. You can't just magic up a TV deal, you know what I mean? But yeah, I would like it to be its own separate thing away from Ring of AEW, excuse me. Send a good 20-25 guys down to Ring of Honor, and I just think things will be so much better. I mean, would I take Ring of Honor taking over Rampage? Yeah, because let's face it, over the last 6 months to a year, Rampage has become largely irrelevant. I mean, who even watches Rampage anymore? I mean, if you really I think only the diehards of the diehards really watch Rampage. But I think the last full episode of Rampage I watched was the Grand Slam one. And I think the last thing period I watched was the Shibata Orange Cassidy match from 2 or 3 weeks ago. But I probably will watch the tag match tonight, which is because I'm recording this on the Friday before the pay-per-view. Yeah. So if Ring of Honor took over Rampage, I would be totally fine with that. But then at the same time, it's a 1 hour show, so if you've got like what can you do really? I mean, I suppose Tony Khan could do something on YouTube. He could stream on YouTube, surely. I mean, surely he could do that. Why not take over one of the dark shows and just because there's no need for 2 dark shows really, is there? There's dark and there's Dark Elevation. I just don't see the need for that. So if you take over one of them, Ring of Honor have a 2 hour show on YouTube, that's something that could happen. But yeah, but I do feel like Ring of Honor could be NXT to AEW's WWE, I think. Anyway, I think that's what I would prefer. Now, although Halloween may be over, what is your least favourite Halloween Havoc pay-per-view? I mean, least has got to be 2000. I mean, that's a fairly obvious answer, right? I mean, Halloween Havoc 2000 was dreadful. I mean, let's face it, 99 wasn't much better. And to be fair, 98 was kind of not very good as well. So I would say 97 was really good to great. I mean, Age in the Cage with Hogan and Piper aside, terrible main event aside, you had arguably the best WCW match of the entire decade with Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio. You had a great lights out match of Randy Savage and DDP. Then you had gems on there like Yuji Nagata versus Ultimo Dragon and stuff like that. And then I think 89 definitely deserves a mention as well. The first Halloween Havoc, a great main event with Ric Flair and Sting versus Terry Funk and the Great Muta. You also had a really great match between Brian Pillman and Lex Luger. But look at it, there's not really that many great shows. I mean, 90 was pretty good, 91 wasn't particularly good, 92 was good, not great, 93 was pretty much a one-match show, to be fair. 94 was alright, 95 was pretty dreadful, 96 was meh. So yeah, I'll go for the best. It'll be either 97 or 89. There we go. Next set of questions. Owen Peterson. We got if Bulldog and Owen had been in WCW 96, 97, how much better match would you have the WCW's tag team division? Oh, that's interesting. Because yeah, I mean, when Owen and Davey were the tag champs in 96, 97, where was the competition? I mean, really? They had a couple of good matches with Doug Furnas and Phil LaFon. And the Vader versus Vader and Mankind, but yeah, I mean, look, these two matches, just for a start, I mean, Owen and Bulldog versus Steiner brothers, I mean, let's think about that one. My God, would that have been something? I mean, I think that's better than anything the WWF could have cooked up at the time. Owen and Bulldog versus Harlem Heat, there's two for a start. I mean, that's two really good ones. Then you think Owen and Bulldog versus the Outsiders, I mean, and yes, I know they did technically wrestle Diesel and Razor Ramon, but that was a fake Diesel and Razor. So I'm talking about Nash and Hall outside. I think that would be actually pretty interesting. If you want to go for the makeshift team that was a team for a while, Owen and Bulldog versus Lex Luger with a Giant, that would be quite interesting. Then you've got stuff like William Regal and Dave Taylor. You've got the Nasty Boys. Who else was there? Can't think of any other big WCW tag teams that jump off right now, but I was there for Harlem Heat, the Outsiders and the Steiner brothers. Yeah, especially the Steiner brothers, that would have been awesome. Then do you think one of the reasons for SmackDown's creation was to challenge Thunder? Not really, to be honest. I think it's just simple as the WWF was so hot. The Raw ratings were doing record numbers. There was high demand for the product, and it was just an opportunity to not only get another show but get one on network television. Because if you remember, Raw is on cable, and obviously network television is like the equivalent of what they got now with SmackDown and Fox. And I just think the opportunity was there, and when else were you going to do it, really? I mean, Thursday night seemed the ideal time. You could have put it on Friday, maybe, like they do now, but I think competing with Thunder at the time was pretty much low on the reasons, because I think they were going to beat Thunder regardless, weren't they? I mean, Thunder was a dead show by summer of 1999, wasn't it? I mean, you know, I think they would found themselves in a similar situation WCW did in late 97, early 98, because the reason Thunder was created because Nitro was being so successful, and the networks wanted more of that. And I think that's more than anything, it's the reason SmackDown was created, because Raw was so successful, and the demand was there for it. Now, here's the right one. Next question. Do you think WWE Network / Peacock will ever release the Superstars of Wrestling episode? Right, so from what I understand, and this could be wrong, so the name for a show, Superstars of Wrestling, was trademarked by a promoter years ago, like 25 years ago or something like that, maybe even longer. And that's why the shows haven't showed up. Because I don't know if you've ever noticed before, but sometimes if you watch a primetime wrestling episode and they show a clip from Superstars and they have the banner Superstars of Wrestling, sometimes you'll see the words of wrestling blurred out. You might even see it on the pay-per-view recaps as well. Like sometimes on an old pay-per-view when they recap something from an episode of Superstars, they'll blur out the words of wrestling. So I think ultimately that is the reason why these shows have never showed up on Network / Peacock. And that's why Superstars essentially started with 1992, because 1992 was when they finally dropped the of wrestling. Maybe that's when they got sued over it. Maybe that's when they got sued over it, and that's when it started. But no, I'm thinking for that reason, no. And also over the last 2 years, the classic content has just really died down on the network. I mean, do you remember when they uploaded like Wrestling Challenge up to January of '87, and they haven't uploaded anything for like 2 years? You know, so obviously because of the Peacock deal and all that, I think the classic content's not really a priority anymore, which is a shame, because that's only why I've got the network. I don't really give a shit about watching modern wrestling on the network. I want to watch my classics, damn it. I would personally love it, because I think Superstars Wrestling started in '86, didn't it? So I would personally like to see it, to be honest with you, but because the uploading Superstars now, I don't really want to watch Superstars from 95, 96. I would much rather watch like 89, 90, 91, 88 sort of stuff, but you know what I mean? Now we've got 2 questions, but they're both kind of similar, so this is a good question, actually, to be fair. What were the top 5 best months of pay-per-view for both WWF and WCW collectively during the Monday Night Wars? Yeah, so this is a great question, actually. And we're gonna go. So bear in mind, starts from September 1995 to March 2001. And also, what you got to consider is some months WrestleMania's on the last week of March, and some years it was the first week of April. So, obviously, up until like, I think 1997 was the first year where both shows had a monthly pay-per-view, so there's going to be odd months in 1996 where there is no other pay-per-view. So let's go. I'll start off number 5, November 1996. You had the awesome Survivor Series show, like legitimately one of the best WWF pay-per-views of all time. Absolutely great show. And then a pretty good World War III, not a great World War III, but pretty good. Because what I found when thinking about this, it wasn't that often that both companies had great pay-per-views. I mean, you look like some of WCW's first great pay-per-views, like Bash at the Beach. What was the WWF equivalent? In Your House International Incident? Then you look like when WWF was having awesome pay-per-views in 2000, WCW was having dreadful ones. So there's not that many, so I'll go November 1996, and then I think April 1999 is number 4, which is interesting because you wouldn't think that, but think about it, right? WWF had Backlash, which I'll probably say is their best pay-per-view of 1999. Let's face it, look at 1999, it's hard to find great WWF pay-per-views of 1999. There just aren't that many of them because in-ring product wasn't a big priority at the time, but Backlash, you had a really, really good show. And then WCW had probably its last truly great pay-per-view, which was Spring Stampede. I mean, that show's just friggin' awesome, isn't it? Spring Stampede 1999. I mean, if you've never seen that show before, check it out. Then number 3, I would go with June 1996. I mean, you had WCW's Great American Bash, which that's one of my favourite WCW pay-per-views of all time, with Malenko versus Mysterio, Chris Benoit versus Kevin Sullivan, the big angle with Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, Flair and Arn Anderson versus Mongo and Kevin Green. It was a really nice gem. Then you had obviously the main event was fine. And then King of the Ring 1996 for WWF wasn't too shabby either. I mean, that's a really enjoyable show for me. I mean, it's not an amazing show, but it's had the birth of Austin 316, the first Undertaker Mankind pay-per-view match, a fucking hell of a gem between Stone Cold and Mark Mero in the opener, and a great main event with Shawn Michaels and the British Bulldog. Now, 1 and 2, so I did think about doing 2001 WrestleMania 17, but then 2 factors. Forgot that WrestleMania 17 took place on April the 1st. And 2, technically the war was over. I mean, the war ended on the Monday before WrestleMania 17, so I thought that doesn't qualify. So number 2, March 1998, with WCW Uncensored against WrestleMania 14. I mean, WrestleMania 14 such an iconic show for the Attitude Era, and Uncensored was a great wrestling show. I mean, I actually think WCW's first 3 pay-per-views in 1998, Sold Out, Super Brawl, Uncensored, were all really good to great. But then number 1, it's got to be July of 1997 with In Your House Canadian Stampede against Bash at the Beach in 1997. I mean, Bash at the Beach was probably WCW's best pay-per-view of 97, I would say. Yeah, I think so. I'll go with that one. I mean, there might be some nerd going, well, Lundrick, you rated this show higher than that one. But this is just so, but my mind, Bash at the Beach is the best one. And obviously Canadian Stampede, we don't need any big thing for that, do we? I mean, that was Spring Stampede was absolutely tremendous. Awesome, like legitimately one of the greatest pay-per-views of all time. And then in a similar vein, what were the top 5 worst months for pay-per-view during the Monday Night Wars? So yeah, I'm going to go to the other side of the spectrum now. So I'll say number 5 would probably be December 1997. I mean, you had In Your House Generation X, which that had to be the worst WWF pay-per-view of 1997. It just wasn't good, was it? I mean, you had a good match with Shawn and Shamrock. You had the first Austin Rock pay-per-view match, but let's face it, it was average at best. And then you had just a whole bunch of not very good and not very well booked matches. And then Starrcade 1997, God, we don't need to go there again, do we, really? I mean, yeah, we don't really want to go there, do we? I mean, that is like legitimately one of the most disappointing WCW pay-per-views of all time. Then we got number 4, November 1999. I mean, you had a dreadful Survivor Series. I mean, yeah, I just hated that show. And then Mayhem was bad, but I feel like there's a lot worse WCW pay-per-views in 99 and 2000 than Mayhem. Like, don't get me wrong, Mayhem is not good in any way whatsoever, but I think what came after that was much, much worse. So then we got number 3, we have, what was it? Kind of in my head as well. Number 3, June of 2000. I mean, in a King of the Ring, because I would have went for WrestleMania 2000 uncensored, but again, WrestleMania 2000 took place on, I think it was the 2nd of April. And let's face it, Spring Stampede wasn't that bad, but obviously uncensored was absolutely dreadful. So June 2000, then King of the Ring 2000 was just a mediocre as hell pay-per-view. I mean, I've seen much worse, but that show just wasn't good. And then Great American Bash 2000, good God, that was absolutely dreadful. I mean, come on, it was WCW in 2000, it sucked arse. Then number 2, we're going to go with June of 1999. Because 1999, because I think WrestleMania 15 was terrible, but uncensored 1999 wasn't so bad. It wasn't great, but it wasn't a bad pay-per-view, really. But I think, obviously, Great American Bash 1999 was dreadful, and King of the Ring 1999 was pretty awful as well. And then taking the top spot has to be October 1995. I mean, you had In Your House Great White North, which was a poor show, really. I mean, God, honestly, what a dreadful card. Diesel versus Bulldog, switching bait Shawn Michaels and Dean Douglas, and Razor Ramon won the Intercontinental title. Goldust versus Marty Jannetty, Hunter Hearst Helmsley versus Fatu, Yokozuna versus King Mabel, bad show, probably the worst In Your House ever. And then Halloween Havoc 1995 on the WCW side, oh God, that honestly, the whole thing of Hogan and the Giant was ridiculous. The whole Yeti thing, there was a Flair in there. There was a Flair and Sting versus Arn and Pillman match, was the highlight of the show. But yeah, 2 dreadful pay-per-views. However, ironically, if just going on a slight tangent, if you're going to say what's the absolute worst time ever, I think it was the back-to-back pay-per-views of Uncensored 95 and WrestleMania 11. But that wasn't in the Monday Night War spectrum, so those are my choices anyway. Then we got the ASMF. I try again, I fucked that up. The ASMF Fanatic. So, given the rules of New Japan and WWE possibly working together, what matches would you want to see? So, first off, because I think this question's inspired by Nakamura wrestling the Great Muta of Pro Wrestling Noah, and I think that's led to a lot of online fans wrongly guessing that WWE and New Japan are going to work together. But no, Great Muta works at Pro Wrestling. No, this has nothing to do with New Japan. But hypothetically, WWE and New Japan did do some stuff together, which I don't think they're going to do, because I mean, New Japan's got the partnership with AEW, and how's that going to work? And can they really work with both AEW and WWE? because I just don't think that's going to happen. So I'll pick five. I'll pick five matches that I would personally want to see. So I think the first choice would be Okada versus Roman Reigns. I mean, if you had the power to book a WWE versus New Japan match, I think that would be the one, right? I mean, the two top stars of the company, the two companies, golden boys and stuff like that. I mean, both have been on top for a long time, and especially now Roman's a heel, this match would work so much better. But yeah, I think this match would be an absolute classic. And then one for me, and it's got to be John Cena versus Hiroshi Tanahashi. I know Cena's not technically, he's not really around anymore, but he's not retired. Cena's still contracted to WWE, and he's not officially retired, so John Cena can come back at any time, and we'll get into that later on in the video. But then this would be the ultimate Legends match, wouldn't it? I mean, Cena, the face ace of the WWE during the 2000s, early 10s. Tanahashi, the man in New Japan for that same period. Because they both kind of got the breaks at the same time and were both carrying the companies at the same time. But it would be a genuine dream match between two legends of the company, Cena versus Tanahashi. Now, next up, I'll say Seth Rollins versus Will Ospreay. If you want to talk pure in-ring match, what would be the best in-ring match to do? Not story or anything like that, just best athletic contest. This has got to be the one right here. Seth Rollins, Will Ospreay. I think this would be an amazing match if it ever happened. Who knows? Maybe one day, but we'll see. I would love to see it perfectly though. Then I think maybe match number 4, Brock Lesnar versus Minoru Suzuki, because it's Brock Lesnar, it's Minoru Suzuki. Of course, it'd be fucking great. It'd be absolute. Just be two badass motherfuckers wanting to beat the shit out of each other. I think it'd be really sweet. I really do. Then interesting. I think Cody Rhodes versus Jay White would be kind of great. I'm pretty sure this hasn't happened. It might have happened in Ring of Honor or something like that, but I don't think it has. Definitely never happened when Cody was in New Japan. I'm virtually certain of that one. But I would really enjoy this. I think this would be actually pretty damn interesting. So those are my 5. Then we got, you think it would be best if Kenny and the Bucks go to New Japan or possibly WWE? I like them, but I think they're past AEW at this point. I would say not Omega, because let's face it, Omega's been gone essentially a year because he was injured for 9 months. Then he came back for 3 weeks. Then the all-out brawl happened, and then he got suspended. And now he's only just coming back for his, tomorrow night. I mean, if the Young Bucks went away, I wouldn't be upset. I think that I just can't see the Young Bucks fitting into WWE at all. I don't know. Do you know, when certain people don't fit certain stars of certain promotions? Like, for example, I don't think The Miz would ever be able to work outside of WWE because it's his style. So I think it's the same with the Bucks. I think their style suits AEW and the Indies. I just don't see them working in WWE. But I'm quite content with the Bucks and AEW. Bucks and Omega stay in AEW for now. If they can just stay in the trios division and stuff like that. So I don't think so. To be fair, there we go. So 2 questions in a similar vein. Who has been your favourite wrestler Triple H has brought back? I would say Johnny Gargano. Although his run on the main roster hasn't been great so far, I was really happy that he's come back. Hopefully in 2023 he'll get a big push. And then who's your least favourite wrestler Triple H has brought back? Not a wrestler, but it's a faction. Hit Row. I'm just not seeing that at all. I think one thing is glaringly obvious, that the act doesn't feel main roster quality, and also without Swerve it just doesn't work. I mean, maybe if someone comes in and becomes a new leader of the group, that could be one thing, but I'm just not feeling it at all, because I just feel like none of the people in Hit Row are the right to lead the group and all that. It just hasn't really worked for me. Then next set of questions, Zemo X2. Who do you think is the best big man in wrestling? So if we're talking all time, it's got to be The Undertaker, right? I mean, far Undertaker or Vader? Yeah, it's got to be The Undertaker, right? I mean, come on. It's got to be. I mean, for his legacy, his work and all that, it's got to be The Undertaker. Right now, Strowman maybe, but probably not. I guess Keith Lee, although Keith Lee hasn't been amazing in AEW, because it's not that many. I'm not going to pick Omos, am I? Let's be fair. And I'm not going to fucking pick Satnam Bloody Singh, am I? So, yeah, I'll probably say Keith Lee, current Undertaker of all time. There we go. Okay, what is your favourite Kane match? So, interesting one, but I would probably say Team Hell No and Ryback versus The Shield, TLC 2012, and that's, Jesus Christ, that match is nearly 10 years old. Who'd have thought that? But yeah, I think that one really, I think objectively Kane's best singles match ever was probably with Chris Benoit, Bad Blood 2004. That was awesome. Then it won because it was a multi-man match, but Kane won it all by himself with TLC 4 in October 2002. And maybe an honourable mention to Undertaker versus Kane at WrestleMania 14. But I feel like that match, that run at Bryan, just the Shield's debut match, just the pure carnage that match. I mean, honestly, go back and watch that match. It was pretty amazing, to be fair. And yeah, I'll probably go with that one. So where are we at now? What do you think of Uncle Howdy? I'm interested to see where it goes. It's kind of an interesting concept of Bray wanting to be a good guy, but his inner demons aren't letting him. So I don't think Uncle Howdy's someone, because I think I've seen a lot of people speculate it's Bo Dallas, and I've also seen people speculate it's Barry Windham, because it does kind of look like Barry Windham, and obviously Barry Windham is actually Bray Wyatt's real life uncle. But I think it's a metaphor. I think Uncle Howdy's Bray Wyatt's inner demon, and because Bray Wyatt wants to be a good person, but Uncle Howdy's telling him, no, Bray, you have to be evil. It's in you. It's in your blood to be evil. You're not a good guy. You're a bad guy. So I think what this thing all means. Of Bray Wyatt wants to be a good guy, but he's battling his inner demons, and then he's gonna come back and be even more evil than ever. So I'm interested. I hope WWE doesn't sit in this for too long. That's my fear, that they'll sit on this for too long and it'll just go nowhere, because that's kind of what happened in a lot of Bray's old programs. He would talk gibberish and the thing wouldn't really go very far, and then people will just kind of get sick of it. So I hope WWE gets to the point fairly soon. I hope they don't drag this one out for too long, but I'm kind of interested in the concept. I think it could be pretty interesting. Least favourite New Japan Pro Wrestling match? Any of the Toriano ones from G1s, to be fair. I mean, there's a bunch of them. Apparently there was an absolutely dreadful one years ago with Nails and El Gigante, but I've never actually seen that one. So I can't think of one off the top of my head. I mean, apparently there is a terrible match between Tomohiro Ishii and Eva from Wrestle King this year, but I've not personally seen that match, so I can't tell you if I hate it or not. I think it is coming up though on one of the subscriber match picks. Believe someone's requested it, if I remember rightly, and we'll get that at some point. But yeah, anything with Toriano on the G1, and then which wrestler made a better transition into movies? For all due respect, I kind of feel like this is a stupid question, and it's like literally the most obvious answer ever. It's The Rock. I mean, yeah, it's that simple. It's The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. I mean, I don't think there's any other answer. I think if anyone tries to say otherwise, that it's not The Rock, they just forget opinions. They're just plain wrong. I mean, it's pretty much a fact, I would say, that The Rock has made the best transition moves of anyone in wrestling ever. I mean, come on, it's got to be The Rock, right? I mean, I don't think there's even a close number two. I know Cena's sort of doing well for himself now, but nothing like The Rock. I mean, come on, Dwayne Johnson's legitimately one of the biggest stars in Hollywood right now. It's unbelievable. Yeah, it's got to be The Rock, for sure. There we go. Prince of Strong Style 9v2. That's version 2. Considering I want to try again. Considering the craziness of the behind-the-scenes drama that we've seen this year in AEW, as well as how overloaded the roster is, who are some people that you think the company should actively push towards bigger spots on the roster to avoid a potential collapse of divisions? Like if someone goes down the main event scene, who's ready to step up? Looks like MJF's next in line, but certainly others will step up. Jungle Boy, Darby Allin, Daniel Garcia, and women such as Willow Nightingale, Nightingale, Jamie Hayter and Ty Mello will follow. Okay, but you're right though, I think AEW does need to push new people in top position, because let's face it, as hard as he's worked and as great as he's been, they shouldn't be relying on Chris Jericho to step up. I mean, they just shouldn't. I mean, I appreciate what Chris Jericho's done for AEW in the last couple of months, but they shouldn't be relying on Chris Jericho. So I think an obvious one has to be Ricky Starks. I mean, hoping he's the person that wins this world title eliminator tournament. But he's got to be someone that AEW is ready to push to the top. Ethan Page as well. I feel like he could be really somebody in this company. And I think in 2023 they've got to get to the point with Jungle Boy, because they've been on the verge of pushing him for the last couple of years, but he's not quite broke through to that next level yet. And I think 2023 is when it's going to happen. I'm not sure about Darby Allin, because I feel like since last year, Darby Allin's lost quite a bit of steam. I mean, you'd have thought this time last year Darby Allin would be at the top or near the top of the card, but he's kind of in the same position he was a year ago, and that's just a really big shame. So I would say Jungle Boy, Ricky Starks, Ethan Page, Wardlow. I mean, what the hell's happened there? When he won the TNT title, he was supposed to like be elevated and big time, but he's not. It's been kind of a flop. Hopefully this Samoa Joe feud is the one that elevates him. Hope so anyway. So those four are the main ones. And women, yeah, Jamie Hayter's a great one, and maybe she'll win the interim women's world title tomorrow night. So that'll be a good one. I haven't seen enough of Willow Nightingale yet. A lot of people have been raving about her, but I haven't seen enough yet, because I don't watch the dark shows. I hardly ever watch Rampage, so can't really comment on Willow Nightingale just yet, because I've not seen enough of it to pass judgment. But yeah, Jamie Hayter's got to be the one in the women's division. Do I want to see Ty Mello push? Do I shite? Is it a miracle that Gunther, aka Walter's main roster, has been going as well as it has? I wouldn't say miracle. Surprise, yeah, because especially when it started, because with Vince McMahon or all. But in fairness, his run is even going well under Vince. Now, granted, it's took on a brand new level and got a lot better under Triple H, but it was actually going in a pretty strong direction under Vince as well. I mean, I think Walter's done a great job elevating the Continental title. But it's never been because Walter's not been good enough. It's just, would he have fit into the style of the main roster and all that? And he has. He's done absolutely tremendous, and he's probably my favourite main roster wrestler right now. So I'm really enjoying that. What have been the best promo / segments of the year? So pretty much all the MJF CM Punk stuff. I mean, the one where MJF told a story about how depressed he was when CM Punk quit the WWE and all that. Then CM Punk being like, is that true? And just the emotion between them was absolutely unbelievable. The MJF William Regal one from a few weeks back, oh, that was great. That was really, really great. I mean, awesome stuff. And I know it's silly, but oh god, the one the other week where Sami Zayn told Roman Reigns that Jey Uso wasn't acting Uso enough. Yeah, granted, it was absolutely stupid, right? It was silly. It was silly segment. It was just so funny that all these grown men cracked up and they just went with it. Then earlier in there, Cody's promo the night after WrestleMania, outstanding promo, and it's just a shame Cody went down, because who knows how hot Cody Rhodes would be right now if that hadn't happened. So those ones are the ones that stand out. What are your favourite matches excluding AEW and WWE? Not just from 2022, but your favourite matches that you saw for the first time, whether it was for your old discoveries or the subscribed match pick compilation. So as far as 2022 goes, I would have to say favourite matches this year, and this is even including AEW and WWE, is FTR versus the Briscoes from Supercard of Honor right before WrestleMania. That match was amazing. Then as far as the match pick, honestly just a lot of the New Japan archive, All Japan archives, excuse me. I think I reviewed quite a lot of them in 2021. So we'll go, but I think the ones I've really enjoyed the most, maybe the ones I was most surprised by is actually Kobashi versus Akiyama from '98. That was great. I actually do love that match, in fairness. I'll probably say the favourite one, because I'd seen Kawada versus Misawa before. I'd seen that one before. But ones I'd never seen before, I would have to say Kawada versus... not Kawada, fucking hell. Kobashi versus Misawa from January of 1997. That match was pretty unbelievable, to be fair. That match I gave 5 stars for Dream Slam was a Kandori versus Hakuta, I want to say it was. You'll probably remember better than me. But that one, I said it was the best women's match I've ever seen. And I totally believe that. There we go. Judging how the past few months have gone following Vince's departure and all-out controversy. What do you think both AEW and WWE could work on improving on? What's your hope for both promotions going to 2023? But we hope that they'll be better. I mean, AEW, I could do a whole video on that, so I'll try and be brief as possible. I mean, they need to start utilising the roster a lot better, because sometimes guys will be on the show, and then you won't see them for 3 or 4 weeks, and hopefully Ring of Honor will fix that. If certain guys go to Ring of Honor, and then you could pretty much focus on your roster. I think Tony Khan just needs to... for one, stop booking tournaments for random reasons. I mean, to me that just feels like lazy booking. What are you going? We're going to have another tournament? Oh, right, okay. Why? Okay, title contendership. Okay, fair. I think he needs to. I think he needs to book matches that have a story. Because what I see, he books a lot of great matches on TV, and don't get me wrong, a lot of the matches on TV are outstanding. But it's like, okay, the internet will like this match. Let's just put these two guys together on Dynamite for no reason. So I think building up to the matches can, giving guys more storylines will be a lot better. Because I think the things I enjoy about AEW mainly are the promos. Because I think we need a lot more promo and non-wrestling segments on the show. And save some of the big matches for, special Dynamite or the pay-per-views. Make Battle of the Belt matter. I mean, that has been a monumental flop, hasn't it? Battle of the Belt. Actually make that something worth watching. And for the love of God, fix Rampage. Rampage is terrible. Actually start putting main event talent on Rampage in matches that people might want to see. Because let's face it, ratings are in the 400,000 range for a reason. Because you're not giving them a good enough reason to keep watching the show, are you, Mr. Khan? But apart from that, and I would say stop hiring people. I would say don't hire anyone for a good 6 months to a year. And then just focus on the roster and you have and getting those guys over. I think just then Triple H for WWE. I think just keep doing what... I think he's in a good direction, so I think you just stick to that. I mean, more logical storytelling, less rematches, just stuff that makes sense, you know. More long-term planning. So in my head, Triple H should have a good idea of what the WrestleMania card's going to be now, and then working towards that. And yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. I would say in the same vein to AEW, stop bringing people back. Because I think all these guys re-debut was having the same effect that AEW was having when ex-WWE guys were just showing up on the TV show every 2 weeks. And people stopped caring. Now, I've got to think AEW's got to be better because they've shown they can be a great company. And they can be again, they've got the talent. And for WWE, I just want to see a good show and hope for the best. The next set of questions we have, Axe Ghazi. Okay, so, right, I'll briefly talk about this one, but later on in the video, I want to give full thought on this matter. So, where's you? Do you think the AEW drama could have been avoided had Tony brought in Punk as a part-timer and didn't give him an office job, because that's the way most of us were speculating that he'd return? So I'll answer this aspect of the question, but I've got a much broader thought on CM Punk down the line. Now, no, I don't think so. I think the only thing, it might have delayed things, because I think Punk was just going to be Punk, wasn't he? And I think something like that, because Punk's got a history of, when he's not getting his own way and all that, throwing his toys out the pram. And CM Punk to CM Punk, and if you just got to take it for what he is. Now the interesting part I thought, Tony was very vague about CM Punk's office job, wasn't he? He just sort of casually mentioned it in the interview, but he didn't elaborate on anything. Like, he didn't elaborate what his duties were or who he was working with. So perhaps if you had, because I can't really comment because I don't actually know what the job was. Because was he working directly with Omega in the books? I mean, if he was, then if he didn't have that job, maybe the drama could have been avoided. But yeah, I just feel like because obviously he wouldn't be around as much if he was part-time, so maybe the situation wouldn't erupt right now, but I just think eventually this was always going to happen, and it was kind of inevitable something like this would happen. And I just don't think it could have been avoided, because Punk is Punk, isn't he? I mean, the only thing they could have done was get rid of Cole Cabana, but that would have pissed off the whole locker room, so you know what I mean? Name some changes you think Triple H would implement before WrestleMania. I think the main one, he's got to improve the women's division. I think that I should have answered that in the last question, but I think because he's elevated the Intercontinental title, he's elevated the United States title, he's improved quite a few people's characters, but really the women's division's not really any better now than it was under Vince. And especially the women's tag team titles, there was quite a bit of promise when they brought those back with Damage Control, but that hasn't. Honestly, can you honestly tell me the women's tag team title is in a better position now than it was before Sasha and Naomi took them? I don't think so. And just the women's division in general, that's something they've got to elevate. A change I would like to see implemented, but I do fully admit it is going to be difficult, is I would like to see them find a way to ununify the world titles. I don't know how they're going to do that, because ideally you don't want Roman Reigns losing until a big show, so not sure how he can get around that. I mean, maybe something like a 2 falls triple threat match where someone wins a WWE title but doesn't pin Roman Reigns. But I would like to see, because I just think, obviously with Roman Reigns being part-time now as well, and Raw not having a world title, I just feel like it's something that's got to happen. But apart from that, honestly, just keep going the same path. Keep the Intercontinental title strong. Keep the US title strong. Just more long-term planning and all that sort of thing. And I just think things will get better. There we go. It's obvious that Triple H's long-term plan in the Bloodline stories of Sami Zayn's face turn, but I don't think that's enough. I should get a major babyface victory at the end of the storyline. What's such a victory would give him? So yeah, I agree. Because I think a lot of people seem to think he might be the one to beat Roman Reigns. I just can't see it. I'm sorry, I really can't. For me, I think, and you might not think this is big enough, but I do. I think it's going to end with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn beating the Usos for the unified tag team titles at WrestleMania. I mean, you might not think that's big enough victory, but I do. I think, and even I tell you what it's going to be explosive actually. When Sami Zayn and Jey Uso have that one-on-one match, maybe they could do that because I don't know if you know, but the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view was in Montreal, so maybe you can do that. Have Sami Zayn beat Jey Uso, and then Kevin and Owens and Sami Zayn. Cause that's good. That's where this is heading, right? Owens and Zayn's reuniting as a babyface tag team. It's got to, hasn't it? I mean, I'll be shocked if it doesn't. And I think that's the one. I think this being built up so well that it'll feel like a bigger match. It'll feel like a big moment. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking Owens and Zayn to beat the Usos at WrestleMania to win the tag team titles. I think that's big enough, because who else are you going to have him beat? Because like I say, I just don't see him beating Roman Reigns. I really don't. And then but yeah, that's what I think anyway. Should MJF leave at the end of his contract? Yeah, I think so, and I think he will. Because I think he's openly said he's going to go to whoever's going to give him the best deal, and that's probably going to be WWE. I mean, I know it's January 2024, so much can change between now and then, but I'm leaning towards the MJF probably should go to WWE, because I just feel like AEW is awesome for what it is, right? I mean, it's great for the industry, it's great for the business and all that, But WWE is just so much bigger than AEW. As much as people might not want to admit that, it just is. Because I feel like, because obviously the exposure WWE has is just unbelievable compared to any other company. I mean, the WWE is huge everywhere. I mean, the exposure, I think, I like the AJ Styles when he was when he wasn't in WWE, he was a star. When he went to WWE, he became a much bigger star. And hell, look at Cody Rhodes now. I think Cody Rhodes, when he came back to WWE, came across as a much bigger star than he did in AEW. And I think it'll be the same for MJF, because I feel like when it comes to January 2024, MJF can name his price and WWE will want him. Because obviously with his age, his ability, his promo skills, I think he's someone who could go to WWE and go right to the top and not have to worry about getting buried because he was an ex-AEW guy and all that. So I personally think he should just go for it. I think like the good time, and I think yeah. So I'm gonna say yeah. I think he should go to WWE when his contract's up. To be honest. This might not sound like a big deal, but it really fascinates me. You see, The Miz almost never wins clean. The overwhelming majority of Miz's victories as a heel comes from interference or cheating. Like, Miz usually wins clean either as a face or his 2010 main event run. Even as Super Hot 2617, he almost never won clean. That in itself is not what fascinates. Right, this is a long question, guys. So, the thing that fascinates me is that two of Miz's only ever clean wins came from Jeff Hardy. No, seriously. Heel Miz has beaten face Jeff clean twice. First at Crown Jewel 2018, then the 22nd of March 2021 episode of Raw. Blows my mind that as a heel, as pure as Miz, who almost never wins clean, beating a face as pure as clean as Jeff Hardy twice. Does this fascinate me? Fascinate you, or do you think I'm thinking too hard? No, to be honest, it doesn't fascinate me at all. I wouldn't have even known that unless you pointed it out. It's kind of funny, when I first read this question, I read it wrong. When I first read it, I thought you were saying that Miz has only ever won clean twice in his career. But when I read it back, he said two of his wins, so obviously he's won more. Yeah, it doesn't really fascinate me. I just think it's a massive coincidence, really. I don't think there's anything in that. It's just kind of how it's worked out. So yeah, there we go. Jay Shepherdson, how do you feel all the returns since Triple H has took over so far? I'm not going to name them all because obviously this would be a long question and all that, so I don't really want to go too deep. But I'll be honest, not many of them have really been hits, have they? I guess Strowman's done fine, but the problem I see really is Strowman's in no better position now than he was in WWE before he was released. And that's kind of my thing about Strowman coming back. Okay, cool, I guess, a star on the roster, but is Braun Strowman going to do something now that he didn't do back in his original run? Obviously, Bray Wyatt has just started, and I think we're going to see bigger stuff down the line. But obviously, he looks like a huge star coming back. Gargano's done alright, but just alright. I don't think it's done anything great. Karrion Kross has been a bit of a flop, unfortunately. I feel like the feud with McIntyre just hasn't worked. And then his two big matches since coming back have been average. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure where this is going to go. But I think Karrion Kross is going to have to really step it up. Candice LeRae, she just came back and done nout, really. Gallows and Anderson, why are they back for? And I'm not really impressed with them coming back. Hit Row, I haven't really enjoyed. I mean, Emma's only just come back, so we'll see what happens there. I mean, the Dexter Lumis, I kind of feel like storyline of The Miz has been stupid. Like, that's probably one of the least things I've enjoyed so far. There's obviously others on there, and I can't literally remember every single one, but none of them have really stood out as being super successful to me, to be honest. Who should leave AEW to thin out the roster? Can be underused people or people on the roster who no one cares about. So I'm just not going to bother with all the people that are on Dark. So I don't really care about Peter Avalon or fucking whoever wrestles on Dark like all the time, because they're not really that important to me. So I'm going to pick the people at decent level stars on the on the Dynamite and Rampage rosters. I think Jake Hager could go tomorrow and nobody would miss him. I mean, what's he really do apart from being big guy that hangs out with Chris Jericho? Can anyone think of a memorable Jake Hager match from AEW? Apart from like multi-man matches and Blood and Guts and Inner Circle and stuff like that? Not really. I mean, honestly, he doesn't really bring anything to the table. And on the same vein, Sean Spears, I mean, he could go tomorrow and I don't think anyone would miss him. I mean, obviously he started off with that feud with Cody, but then after that he's just kind of been there. And these two, this is not because he's not good enough, it's just because AEW has done fuck all with them. It's kind of for the wrong good. Brian Cage and Lance Archer, both great talents. I mean, both, especially Lance Archer. I mean, I'm a big Lance Archer fan, but if Tony Khan doesn't have anything for him, they might as well just get rid of him and push someone younger than him. Same with Brian Cage. I would say let him go for his own good. This one might sound controversial, but I think Samoa Joe. Because honestly, I'm a massive Samoa Joe fan, as most people know. But I sort of think Samoa Joe's past it. He's way past his physical prime. He probably looks in the worst physical shape he's ever been in his career. And I've honestly not been impressed that much by any of his big AEW Ring of Honor matches so far. I just feel like you could get rid of him and then push someone else. You know what I mean? Then women's roster. I don't know. I mean, I've got no particular problems with the women's roster. I mean, Athena hasn't really done much to impress me. I think she hasn't done that much really. But yeah, I'm not for the women's roster. I don't really know. But for the men's roster, those ones I've mentioned, then you've got like just random people like Brandon Cutler who could go. But to be honest, I could take pretty much all the Dark Order apart from John Silver going. I don't think any of them really add much to the product, but I think John Silver's got a lot of potential. But yeah, that's a good, interesting one. With Triple H and oh no, I've read a different one there. Sorry. Best and worst WWE pay-per-views this year. Best one's got to be Clash at the Castle. Although I did think SummerSlam was really good. WrestleMania Night 1 was pretty damn good with Becky and Bianca, Cody and Seth and Stone Cold coming back. But I think Clash of the Castle, you had 6 matches. They were all at least pretty good. Obviously, the main event was what I didn't like the outcome, but the match was awesome. Sheamus versus Gunther was an absolute classic. The opening 6-woman tag match was pretty good. Rollins versus Riddle was an excellent match. It was a Shayna Baszler versus Liv Morgan. It was an okay match. What was it? Edge and Mysterio versus Balor and Priest. That was a really good match as well, with Dominic turning heel at the end. Then worse has got to the Elimination Chamber show. I mean, actually, to be fair, Royal Rumble wasn't particularly good either. But I think Elimination Chamber, you had 2 average chamber matches. Becky versus Lita was a pretty good match. Reigns versus Goldberg was what it was. And to be honest, I can't even remember any of the rest of the undercard off the top of my head, which probably tells me that all the undercard matches were average to bad. Or I would have remembered them right if they were any good. So, Elimination Chamber for worst. And then we got... could 2023 be a great year for WWE? It could. Do I think it will be? I wouldn't say great. I would say pretty good. I think it was pretty good. I think most people would be satisfied with that. Because I feel like the Triple H era started off really good, but over the last maybe like 5 or 6 weeks, it's kind of tailed off a little bit. Especially Raw. Raw's just been kind of bland lately. But obviously this time of year is usually a pretty lean time. So if they have a good run up to the Raw, if you have a good road to WrestleMania and a great WrestleMania, that'll be pretty good. So I'm thinking 2023 could be good, but good in the sense of like, I'm trying to think of a year to come, maybe like 2004, 2005 good. Certainly not like Attitude Era good or 2002 good or something like that. But yeah, I'm thinking I think it'll be good, not great. And then we got early guesses for the WrestleMania 39 card. So obviously I could be dead wrong on a lot of these, so I think Reigns and The Rock's going to happen. I think it will. Put it this way, if it doesn't happen this year, it's probably not going to happen. But it seems like the right time to do it. The tribal chief character's at its peak. We're in Hollywood, rock country. I mean, how old? No, The Rock's 50. No, he's 50 now, isn't he? He's born in 72, wasn't he? So by the time WrestleMania comes around, he'll be nearly 51, and you're thinking, is he really? If he's going to make his comeback, he probably really needs to do it now. So if he doesn't do it now, he's probably not going to do it. And if it's not Reigns versus The Rock, the obvious number 2 choice would be Reigns versus Cody Rhodes. Who knows? He might find a way. They could find a way to do both, but I just don't know. Maybe if they split the titles, maybe. I don't know. It could happen. Because you could, this could be a way to get, Cody could win the Royal Rumble and only challenge for the WWE title, and that could maybe Reigns can have 2 matches, because it has been done in Wrestle Kingdoms before. I mean, guys like Okada and that have main evented Wrestle Kingdom Night 1 and Night 2 in the past, so it is possible. But if it is Reigns and The Rock, what does Cody do? I don't know. It's interesting. Could you do Cody versus Seth again? I mean, yeah, that'd be fine, but do we really need a 4th Cody and Seth match? As far as the women's title goes, I think Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey, I think that's going to happen. I really do think that's going to happen this year. I think Becky Lynch is going to win the 2023 Royal Rumble, challenge Ronda Rousey for the SmackDown Women's title. I mean, if I had to guess right now, I feel like Night 1's going to be main evented by Becky versus Ronda, and Night 2 is going to be main evented by Reigns versus The Rock. Now, I've heard a few interesting rumours. Heard the interesting rumour that Stone Cold's being offered another match. And if he does have another match, who do you have him wrestle? I don't know. Because Kevin Owens seems like the perfect guy to face Stone Cold. I mean, so I don't know who you could you have him wrestle someone like Seth Rollins who could bring the best out in him? I'm not sure. If it was up to me, if I was Stone Cold, I would probably not do it, because I feel like the Owens match was pretty much perfect. Now I'm going on the theory that Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar are going to have their 3rd match at WrestleMania. Because obviously look what happened to Crown Jewel. Lashley and Lesnar are going to have a 3rd match. They could do the Royal Rumble, I suppose, but in my mind the Royal Rumble match would be a great way to build to a bigger match. And so I think it's going to be Lesnar versus Lashley 3. Because I did think, what if it was Lesnar versus Gunter, but you could do that later on. The match I would like to see, and I think it could happen, is Gunter versus Drew McIntyre. Not necessarily for the Intercontinental title, just happening. As I mentioned before, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn to face the Usos for the WWE Tag Team titles. That'll be a big match. Apparently, what I heard, Logan Paul is going to be alright for Logan Paul will be at WrestleMania this year, and he's actually called out John Cena. Did you see that? In an interview, he called out John Cena for a WrestleMania match, and that's going to be interesting. Because I do think John Cena will wrestle on this show. I mean, the match I would like, because originally I thought, right, there's no way they're doing Cena versus Austin Theory now, but after seeing what happened on Raw, looks like Theory could be getting a renewed push, and it could be Cena versus Theory, but it could also be Cena versus Edge. I think an obvious one, Rey versus Dominic. I think that is going to happen at WrestleMania. I think like Rey going to SmackDown was just a device to hold off that match till WrestleMania. They'll probably pick that one up about in the Royal Rumble match, and maybe they can have like Rey eliminate Dominic, and then Judgment Day can torture Mysterio to the point he finally snaps and challenges Dominic for WrestleMania and all that. I think if he can come back, which I don't know if he can, but if Randy Orton's good to go, I think Randy Orton versus Matt Riddle seems like an obvious match to do. Maybe Randy Orton can come back as a heel, turn on Matt Riddle, the breakup of RK Bro, and then the big showdown at WrestleMania. Now there's a couple more matches I'm not going to mention because I have, and one specifically about the Raw Women's title, because I've been asked a specific question about that later on in the video. Then apart from that, apart from like the mid to low mid card scene, you can take your pick really. Because Bray Wyatt's an interesting one, because what does Bray Wyatt do? I don't know. Strowman, I don't know. Because a lot can change between now and like February time. But as far as the main matches, those are the ones I'm going with. They also, right, that's Jay Shepherdson done, sorry. So now we're on to Samoan Fan 101. Do you think Cody Rhodes will be the one to beat Roman Reigns for the championship? I gotta think so, because who else is he? I mean, I'm not going to rant about it now because it's done, it's in the past, but it should have been Drew McIntyre at the Clash of the Castle. It wasn't, right? I can twist about that all day, but it's not going to change the fact it never happened. So that one's obviously off the table. So who else is he really to do it? I mean, Seth Rollins, possibly, due to the history and all that, but I don't see it. And like I said before, I just don't see Sami Zayn doing it. I think the problem is, if it is Reigns and The Rock can't possibly win, because if The Rock beat Roman Reigns, I think that would just shit on the last 2.5 years. A 50-year-old part-time, a legend, obviously The Rock's a legend and all that, but if The Rock was the one to beat Roman Reigns, I think that would just piss so many people off. Because I think it's got to be a full-time performer in the prime now, hasn't it? Because this performer's got to be elevated by it. I mean, Bray Wyatt's a possible, so I think the only three I could think of is Cody, Seth, Bray, Bobby Lashley to push, but even that I would say is unlikely. So I think it's got to be Cody Rhodes. There we go. What can New Japan to get some buzz back for its product? Just book some fresh matches. I mean, this is a problem, right? How many times have we seen Okada versus Naito, Okada versus Ibushi, Tanahashi and all that? I think the problem, there's just not really a match on the New Japan thing. But the main event for WrestleMania, right, Wrestle Kingdom, sorry, is going to be Okada versus Jay White, and yeah, that match is probably going to be fantastic. But we've seen Okada versus Jay White before, you know what I mean? I would say if you can make a deal to get some AEW guys in part-time, if you can get some dates on Bryan Danielson, if you can get Kenny Omega back for a couple of the big shows, I think that would help. But I think they're in a similar. They've got to start pushing new stars. I mean, there's a few. That Shota Umino's just come back from excursion. He's someone they could elevate. Ren Narita looks like someone that could be someone really good. And then you could get some guys from either Nora or Japan. I mean, I'm sure there's guys out there in the Nora or Japan and even Dragon Gate rosters that could come into New Japan and shake the company up. Yeah, and I don't know, has Jado just been in the job for too long? I mean, he's been booking for what? At least 10 years, I believe. Probably longer than that. Could it be time for someone to take over the booking for New Japan and book it in a new direction? Because I think obviously they've lost a lot of steam, haven't they? With Triple H in charge, should Josh Alexander think about going to WWE, or will he get lost in the shuffle? Oh, I think he's got a lot better chance now than he did before. I mean, obviously there's always that risk of him getting lost in the shuffle, just like if anyone coming in. But one thing, I think, like, obviously he might lose to Josh Alexander name, which is fair, that's fine, that is what it is. But at least if he went to NXT, he'd probably be a similar character to what he is in Impact right now. And the funny thing is, I think Josh Alexander's a lot older than I thought he was, actually. I only thought he's like maybe 29, 30, but he's like 35, so, I mean, but yeah, if I was Josh Alexander, because at some point he's got to come to the point where he's going to have to move on from Impact. Do you know what I mean? It's just, I think eventually that's just something that's just going to come to a head. It is going to happen. He's probably going to have to leave Impact in the next couple of years, because one, he's been a champion for so long, where's he going? Two, obviously he stands to make a lot more money, and I think with the new regime change, if he has a chance, he should probably give WWE a try at least. He'd probably do alright on NXT. He'd probably do well on NXT, I would say. You could probably main event on NXT, and then on the main roster, I think you could probably do at least alright. Don't know if he'd be a main event star on the main roster, but I don't think, because obviously I think Vince just wouldn't say anything to Josh Alexander. I think that's fairly obvious, right, that Vince just wouldn't say it. Vince was fine and plain and boring and just wouldn't do anything with him. And yeah, so I think he should personally go for it. Then how bad do you think Vince is raging watching all the changes in WWE from home? I don't know. He might not even be bothered, to be fair. I mean, I think he probably cares a lot more about probably raging a lot less than you might think about it. I mean, Vince is making his money regardless now, isn't he? Because Vince still owns the company, so if WWE is making profit, Vince is making a lot of profit. Yeah, obviously, I think he probably doesn't agree with a lot of the stuff that Triple H is booking, obviously, because it's not his vision. But I don't think he's that upset about it, to be fair. There we go. From an in-ring perspective, who's been a better world champion, Roman Reigns or Josh Alexander? I would say Reigns just, I mean, let's face it, Josh Alexander had some great matches. But I think over the last 2 years, Roman Reigns just so many outstanding title defenses. The early Jey Uso ones, wow. The ones with Kevin Owens in late 20 and early 21, great. Daniel Bryan at Fastlane, then the WrestleMania match with Bryan and Edge, and then the Bryan match on SmackDown. Then some matches that weren't amazing but great, like the ones with Edge at Money in the Bank, Cena at SummerSlam. And then even this year, one of Matt Riddle's a hell of a gem. Then a great match with Drew McIntyre at Clash of the Castle. And his last title defence against Logan Paul, the Crown Jewel, there's not been a bad match in there. I mean, there's been a couple of matches that has been very good, not great, such as a Mysterio Hell in a Cell, Finn Balor at Extreme Rules. I mean, I even forgot about the Brock Lesnar match at SummerSlam. That was awesome. I mean, let's face it, the Crown Jewel 21 and what was it? Yeah, WrestleMania Night 1. Those matches were fine, not great. But granted, I've not seen every single Josh Alexander match. I mean, for example, I've not seen Josh Alexander versus Alex Shelley. I've never watched that match. But the matches that I've watched, I've enjoyed. But I think Reigns is a little bit better. Then we've got Kano, Singh, Jawanda. If CM Punk never left WWE, I think you mean what if CM Punk never left WWE, but I could be. So it's a tough, because I don't, right, so I'll go for just a little bit. I won't go too much detail. So I think if CM Punk never left, it's interesting because obviously directly he was supposed to face Triple H at WrestleMania 30, wasn't he? And that obviously, because I think ultimately Daniel Bryan would have won the title at WrestleMania because the fan outrage was so much. But I feel like if Punk leaving and slotting Bryan in with Triple H, that gives WWE a much easier path to get Bryan into the main event at WrestleMania. And the Punk Triple H, that match would have been alright. I think the problem is, I think the end of CM Punk's run in WWE, I think he definitely lost a lot of passion. But what you do really after that, I mean, I think a big change is, remember when Bryan got injured and Cena had to win the Money in the Bank to be WWE champion again. And maybe CM Punk in 2014 could have had another reign as WWE champion. And Brock Lesnar maybe could have squashed John Cena without the title involved, and Punk could have wrestled other people. I think Punk and Bray Wyatt, that's a feud that could have happened in 2014 or 2015. I feel like maybe CM Punk could have turned heel and you could have done a Punk versus Bryan for WrestleMania 31. Because let's face it, Bryan and the Money in the Bank match was meh, wasn't it? Not Money in the Bank, fucking hell. The Intercontinental title ladder match, that's what it was, right? So Punk and Bryan could have been something for WrestleMania 31. And then going to 15, 16, 17, you've got quite a few feuds that we could have seen. I mean, Punk feud with all members of the Shield, for example. I mean, all three feuds could have been awesome. Punk versus AJ Styles, that feud could have been really sweet. So there's four feuds you could have had right there. Then obviously Bray Wyatt as well, which I mentioned. And then after that, because when you get into 17, 18, who knows? It's like 4 years down the line. Maybe Punk would have just, maybe 3 or 4 years down the line, Punk would have said that's enough, and maybe he would have just stopped wrestling completely at that point. Who knows? There we go. Your thoughts on the TNA era of Spike TV from 2005 to 2013. So overall, I'll give overall thoughts. I'll try not to go too long. So 2005, 2006, probably my favourite time period of TNA ever. Because at the time, I just felt I was not enjoying the WWE product as I once had. And then we started getting the Wrestling Channel over in the UK. And I would say about the end of 2004 when I started regularly watching TNA. Because for what I remember, we used to get Impact. I I want to say it was on a 3 or 4 week delay, actually, if I'm remembering right. We did get the show, but it was like a month behind in the US people. So we used to get Impact on the Wrestling Channel, but the plus side, we used to get all the TNA pay-per-views broadcast for free on like free TV. So I used to watch them. And then I think it was 2006 it went over to Bravo. I want to say it was 2006 Wrestling Channel lost the TNA license, and then Bravo picked the time slot up, and then I want to say at that point we were getting, it was like maybe a 1 week delay. I think so. I think it was a 1 week delay at the most at that point. But 2005, 2006, I really enjoyed it. I think it was TNA was a fresh product. It had a lot of fresh young stars like Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, America's Most Wanted, Abyss, people like that. But I think the big thing then, and what would be a problem later on, is the WWE guys that were coming into TNA during that time period were guys more or less in the prime who were there to make a difference. So Team 3D were great for the tag division. Rhino was a great addition. Christian Cage was a phenomenal addition. And of course the standout being Megastar and Kurt Angle. And then something happened. So from what I gather, it was around September 2006 that the big creative switch happened. So during the early period of the Spike TV deal, it was Scott D'Amore, Mike Tenay, and I think Jeremy Borash with the booking committee. And then at some point, God knows why, only Jeff Jarrett can answer this question, he decided to switch it up, bring back Vince Russo, and say, why? Why would you want Vince Russo back, for God's sake? But there was Vince Russo, Dutch Mantel, and Jeff Jarrett. And then when Russo came back in, then the product started going downhill. So ironically, at the time, I would have said 2007 sucked. But looking back, they still had quite a bit going for it. I mean, in fairness, TNA 2007 is probably as good as EW is now, probably. But at the time, I thought it was going, because we were getting a lot more silly storylines and stuff like that. And then 2008, I feel like it's a really overrated year. Because I think like a lot of people in the early 20s now were watching this back when they were kids, and then they think it was great, but it really wasn't. Then 2009 is when I feel like the product really got a lot worse. I mean, the Main Event Mafia gets remembered as a great storyline, but for me, it's like these old guys are just recreating WCW stuff from 10 years ago. I mean, look at some of the 2009 pay-per-views. I mean, Victory Road, Victory Road was dreadful. Because I think there's the wrong narrative out there that TNA was awesome and then Hogan and Bischoff ruined it. No, TNA was actually lacking for quite a while. And then 2010 happened. Oh God! And I honestly hate the Hogan. I don't hate, but I just did not like the Hogan Bischoff era of TNA at all. But yeah, there was just really big. I think the problem was they were basically, to get through the 2010s, they were going all the way back to the 90s and doing all the stuff that they did in WCW 10, 15 years ago. And by 2010, 2011, that stuff was all old hat and all that. I think TNA was awful in 2010, not much better in 2011, and then it kind of got a little bit of revival in 2012 with Bobby Roode as a champion, then Austin Aries rising through the ranks to becoming champion, all that. Then they had a few really good pay-per-views that year, but I don't think it lasted. Then in 2013, I kind of feel like it dipped again. Like the whole Aces and Eight era was just not a good one, and I think by that point they just lost so much steam. Lost a lot of the fan base and kind of just lost the chance to really be competitive with WWE, and obviously it never happened, and they just kind of slowed down. Then, but favourite year of the PG era, 2011. I wouldn't say 2011 was a great year, just the best one of the PG era. But you had a lot of positives in this year, like The Rock coming back, for example. That was great. Although WrestleMania 27 wasn't very good. Then the whole pipe bomb thing, the lead up to Money in the Bank and all that great storytelling. Then the Money in the Bank pay-per-view itself was awesome. Then you had stuff like the Randy Orton Christian feud was tremendous that year. That's definitely one of my favourite feuds of the last 10, 12 years or so. Great feud. Mark Henry getting the big push in the Hall of Pain version of Mark Henry That was actually pretty good. Daniel Bryan breaking through and becoming the world heavyweight champion. So those are the positives, really. But yeah, I'll have to go 2011. Favourite Chris Benoit match. Right, so if I had to pick one, it's got to be Kurt Angle Royal Rumble 2003, right? My God, that match is almost 20 years old. I feel pretty old right now. Yeah, I do. I feel pretty damn old knowing that, to be fair. But I'll say a close second has got to be when he won the World Heavyweight title at WrestleMania 20 over Triple H and Shawn Michaels triple threat match. But yeah, the Angle Benoit, if you want to see a great wrestling match, just honestly, unbelievable match. I think for me, these were the two best wrestlers in the world at the time, as far as in-ring performances. And they had this special chemistry. They had this awesome chemistry. And what was awesome as well, these guys, they seemed to push each other. They always pushed each other to be better. And it was just great stuff. And we got, okay, so favourite WrestleMania for Ruthless Aggression. If this is an easy answer. It's going to be a boring answer. WrestleMania 19. I think that's an obvious one, really. If you go from 2003 to 2008, yeah, it's easy. I think it's quite easily WrestleMania 19. Hell, WrestleMania 19 has a case of being the best WrestleMania ever. For me, it's number 2 behind 17. But WrestleMania 19 was awesome. Lesnar Angle great main event. Shawn and Jericho was awesome. Austin Rock finale. Hogan versus Vince. We'll ignore Triple H burying Booker T, but then even the undercards was actually nice and solid with Matt Hardy versus Rey Mysterio, the women's triple threat, the tag team triple threat. WrestleMania 19 is a legendary show. Then we got, so there's some good questions in this one actually. Harlan 2494. What do you think of the heel turn of Jeff Hardy in 2010? I didn't like it for a number of reasons, right? I think the biggest problem was this 10-10-10 thing. It was built up, like, hyped so much. But the problem is, it just left your head spinning. So, in a span of like 2 minutes, Jeff Jarrett, Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff, and Jeff Hardy all turned. So you had 4 heel turns in about 2 minutes. So first off, those 3 people also turn heel. Completely lessens the impact of Jeff Hardy turning heel. So I think Hogan, Bischoff, and to a lesser extent Jeff Jarrett totally stole Jeff Hardy's thunder. So the impact of Jeff Hardy turning heel was nowhere near as big as it should have been. And at the time, I thought it was a bad move because I think Jeff Hardy was obviously the best babyface TNA had, like the most over babyface on the roster. And then to turn him heel, Jeff Hardy just never worked as a heel for me. Some people are just better at playing one role, and Jeff Hardy was just never a heel for me. I mean, I suppose it was worth a try, because TNA needed to do something creative to shake it up, but it was just a little bit over the top, and his heel run just wasn't as successful as it should have been. If Jeff Hardy had turned heel by himself, and not had all the immortal shit of Hogan, Bischoff, and Jeff Jarrett and all that, might have been a lot better than it was. But there we go. So right, this is a good question, and I'll try and be brief as possible because this could be a whole video. So what are your 5 actual unpopular wrestling opinions? So I'm sure I've done a video about this in the past. It's not on the channel anymore. I'll try not to go too long because this is like a video in of itself sort of thing. So I'll give you 5, and I've gone for 3 classic and 2 modern. So I'll do the classic ones first and then do the modern ones last. And I think the last opinion is going to be one I'm going to get quite a bit of hate for. So we're going to go with. So for me, objectively, the NWO were terrible at the job. The NWO were absolutely terrible heels. I mean, honestly, as successful as the NWO was, in the long run, I think it did a lot more harm than it did good. Yes, it spiked WCW's popularity, and it was the biggest thing WCW ever did. But the problem was, these guys are objectively terrible heels. They acted cool, and they started the dreaded trend, which I hate, is the cool heel. A heel should not be, for me, a heel should not be cool. A heel should be someone you don't like. But the NWO, they acted cool than all the baby faces, made the baby faces look terrible regularly. It was like the baby face was beat, the NWO would beat up WCW and beat up WCW, beat up WCW some more, to the point where you were like, right, why do I want to cheer the WCW guys now? These guys are cool. I want to like the NWO now. So yeah, they looked so superior to everyone in WCW. It wasn't funny, and yeah, they did babyface promo, like the Scott Hall survey thing. I hated that. Was it entertaining? Yes, but a heel should not be acting like a babyface and getting the crowd behind him and all that. Was terrible. And they never got the comeuppance. Like, that's the thing about the Four Horsemen. The babyfaces always got shine in the Four Horsemen, and the babyfaces always looked better than the Horsemen in the end. But that never happened. Like, they had the odd time where someone might win a battle with the NWO, but the war was never won by WCW. I mean, every time when it comes to shove, the NWO looks so much stronger than WCW. Honestly, WCW should just turn the NWO babyface in around 1997 and just went with it. And yeah, they were objectively terrible heels. Now, next one, it absolutely should not have been Kurt Angle versus Mr. Perfect for WrestleMania 18. All the time when I see videos about or lists about WrestleMania matches that should have happened, this one comes up on the list so much. And I just so disagree with that. Absolutely should not have been Kurt Angle versus Mr. Perfect. Because what people don't understand when they say this, Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig in 2002 was not in his prime anymore. He was actually far past his prime. So I'm actually convinced that most people that think it should have been Kurt Angle versus Mr. Perfect WrestleMania 18 weren't watching the WWE in 2002. I'm honestly convinced that people that think that saw a few matches from Kurt Hennig back in his prime in 1991 and realised, oh, Mr. Perfect's awesome. Him and Kurt Angle would have been a great match. Well, yeah, at one time it might have been a great match, but that time was not 2002. Mr. Perfect certainly wasn't Mr. Perfect of 91 in 2002, or even like Kurt Hennig of 19. I think pretty much Kurt Hennig after when he went to WCW in 1997 to the end of his career, he was pretty average for the most part. Yeah, he had good matches here and there, but for the most part, his prime had left. I think his last really good year was probably 93, when he had that match with Bret at King of the Ring. That was probably his last really, really great match of his career. But I think what people don't understand, Mr. Perfect wasn't coming back to WWE to be a big star in 2002. Mr. Perfect, because he managed to look good in the Royal Rumble, but I feel like that was more because of the Royal Rumble environment. He was allowed to look good in there, but really, he was there on the roster to put other people over. That was his role, to wrestle on heat, maybe the second or third match on Raw, to wrestle younger talent and put them over. So him and Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 18 wouldn't have been a great match. It might have been pretty decent because of Kurt Angle, but the match I just don't see it. And then number 3, Owen Hart was never destined to become a WWF champion. That quite often, if Owen Hart hadn't have died, he would have went on to become a WWF champion. And for me, it's like, no, he really wouldn't have done. I mean, at that point in 1999, Owen Hart just wasn't fitting in with the Attitude Era anymore. I mean, at that point, I feel like Owen Hart had one eye on leaving the business at the end of his contract. Because you got to think, like, who were the WWE champions after Owen Hart passed away? Triple H, right? That was the next heel to be champion. Should Owen Hart have been champion instead of Triple H in 99 and 2000? No. Should have been champion over The Rock? No. Or people after, like, Kurt Angle? I'm sorry, no. I feel like if Owen Hart was ever going to be the WWF champion, it would have happened in 1994. And really, what Owen Hart was doing was, I think he would have actually had a good 2000 wrestling likes of Angle, Benoit, Jericho, but Owen Hart was never destined to become a main eventer after his passing. It just wasn't going to happen. I feel like Owen would have stuck around till like late 2001, early 2002, went away, and then maybe wrestled part-time after that. But no, Owen Hart was not destined to become a WWF champion. Owen Hart's career had already peaked in either 94 or 97. It just wasn't going to happen anymore. Now for the modern ones. So, by the way, these are all what I perceive to be unpopular opinions. Like, I'm sure there'll be people out there that will agree with me. So, I think the WWE was absolutely right to rebrand NXT last year. I know this has actually taken my personal enjoyment out of it. Because did I personally enjoy the black and gold branded WWE NXT more than NXT 2.0? Yeah, I love the black and gold NXT. But I think the problem was WWE turning NXT into super indie was only going to take them too far. And I feel like this was a problem before AEW started. So, like when Johnny Gargano and Adam Cole were having those huge takeover main events, I think the problem was we got to those main events, they were going like 45, 50 minutes, doing all these moves, kicking out of everything, doing all these super indie spots and all that. And as impressive as the matches were, the feeling I got out of it is, how are they going to top this? They can't possibly keep doing this. They simply cannot continue to top themselves. And I think the big problem with NXT was it was doing dick for the WWE's future. I mean, yes, it was great because what it essentially became is a place where indie guys that had been wrestling for 10 or 15 years to get a spot in WWE and prove themselves. Which, fine, that was cool for a while, but I think the problem was the performance center guys were getting shafted. I mean, if NXT had stayed how it was in 2018, 2019, I don't think... Do you think Bron Breakker would be where he is now? I really don't. And yeah, I just feel like probably around the TakeOver New York time, I feel like NXT had peaked and it wasn't going to get any higher and it wasn't going to do anything for the future. Now, granted, a lot of this is because Vince used to fuck up people on the main roster, but yeah, I feel like WWE absolutely right to take a step back and use NXT as a device to build up younger stars, like stars that more fit the WWE mold and all that, and turn it back to what it originally was. It was originally supposed to be developmental, and I think along the way they lost the developmental aspect of NXT. It became a super indie more than anything, and yeah, that was great for a while. But at some point, I think they had to make the change, and I think, and although I personally enjoyed the old NXT more than the new NXT, I feel like for the future of the company, what NXT doing now is going to be better for business down the line. I mean, we're going to see the success of the new NXT over the next couple of years. I mean, another example, Solo Sikoa. Would he be where he is now under the black and gold NXT? I don't think so. I really don't. And obviously Bron Breakker is probably the main one, but yeah, I honestly do think that. I feel like WWE was absolutely correct to rebrand NXT. And now the big one. And for me, I feel like this is going to get me a lot of hate. I even think I might lose subscribers over this. But I honestly believe this. I think Jeff Hardy's a dick. I just think he's a shitty person. Because honestly, I'm sick of people like sticking up at Jeff Hardy all the time. Like, oh, poor Jeff. Poor Jeff, he needs help. Do you know what? Nah, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of people defending Jeff Hardy for all the stuff he's done in his life, with his drug problems and all that. I mean, he's a fucking grown-ass man. He's not a kid anymore. He's not like a kid in his early 20s. He's how old is he? Like 44, something like however old he is. He's a man in his mid-40s with a wife and kids, and he's still doing all this stupid shit that he was doing 20 years ago. And he's got away with it because Peter's enabled him, made excuses for him all his life. But no, Jeff Hardy's never took responsibility and goes, you know what? This keeps happening. Maybe Jeff Hardy's the problem all along. And it's not the wrestling business's fault or anything like that. It's him. He keeps making these shitty decisions. And I'm just sick of it. I'm so done defending Jeff Hardy. I've just had enough of it. I mean, what he did in 2011 when he came to that Victory Road, that was 11 years ago. And here we are, 2022, he's still doing all this stupid childish shit like getting DUIs and all that sort of stuff. What? Right, when's the end point? When's enough? If he gets behind the wheel of a car, runs an old man over and kills him, that could happen. And there'd probably still be people defending him. I mean, I remember last year, when people were trying to blast WWE for getting rid of him and all that. Said, oh no, they're just overreacting. Well, it turns out WWE was absolutely correct to get rid of Jeff Hardy last year, because Tony Khan offers Jeff Hardy a massive olive branch, I mean, Tony Khan had to know that Jeff Hardy had some problems, but he gave him a job in AEW anyway, tried to resurrect the Hardy Boys, and then he fucks it up again. It's like, how many... For me, Jeff Hardy should not come back to AEW. I don't care how big of a star he is. It's just going to happen again. If Tony Khan brings back Jeff Hardy, puts him in a prominent position, he's just setting himself to get mugged off by him one more time. And it's gotten to the point now where maybe Jeff Hardy just doesn't give a shit, and maybe he's just a dick, to be honest with you. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of people defending Jeff Hardy. It just winds me up rotten when people do that. I've just had enough of him. I can't be doing it for him anymore. I'm just sick of the bullshit he's been doing all his life. Then, okay, so after that, now that's done. Next question. What are your thoughts on Carmelo Hayes? He's my favourite wrestler in NXT 2.0, and I think he'd really have a great career on the main roster. I like Carmelo Hayes. I think he's a great talent, great in the ring, pretty good on the microphone. I think what's interesting, and I think it's a credit to him more than anything, when the NXT rebrand happened, he was the one smaller indie guy that was managed to be successful in NXT 2.0, and I think that's probably because he's got more charisma than the average guy. I think he's got like more charisma than someone like a Kyle O'Reilly or Roderick Strong. But he managed to survive the NXT change and actually do well. Yeah, I think he's probably one of the better wrestlers on the NXT roster. And yeah, I think now, especially with the change, I think now he's got a chance on the main roster. Will he be a big star? I don't know. Like, will he be a main eventer? Maybe. But he could definitely be an Intercontinental title guy, a US title guy. Maybe he can occasionally get a feud with someone like a Seth Rollins or someone like that. But yeah, I've got relatively high hopes from him. I actually do quite like Carmelo Hayes. Okay, so this is a good one. Okay, so who do you think is the most overrated wrestler in wrestling today, and the most underrated wrestler in wrestling today? So, overrated, again, I just honestly, Liv Morgan. I'm still not seeing it, guys. She's been around for a long time. I'm just not seeing it. I still think she's just average. I mean, she's a decent wrestler. She's alright on the microphone, but she's never wowed me at any point. Even in this push, really, she still hasn't really done anything, really. She's fine. I mean, she's not terrible or anything like that, but I just don't see it. I really don't. I'm sorry, I just don't. Nah, I'm just not having it. Like, I think she's alright. She's alright, basically. And then I'm going to go with one who's overrated by his promoter, not so much by the fans. Although I do think a lot of fans do overrate him, but I think the person booking him overrates him. That's Sammy Guevara. I think Tony Khan just puts way too much stock into this guy. He's over pushes this guy so much, and yeah, he's not great, is he? I mean, he can flip around the ring, he can do cool high spots, but that doesn't make him a good wrestler. I mean, and he's an absolutely atrocious seller. I mean, honestly, do you remember that ladder match he had with Scorpio Sky when he fell off the ladder onto some barbed wire, jumped up, ran up the ladder, and then week before last, that 3 falls match with Danielson, he took the knee strike, and then like 10 seconds later he was running up the ropes and doing a dive, and then and his promos are not good. He's not objectively not. He's not got a heat because he's a good heel. He's got heel because he acts terrible. I mean, and I can tell in real life he's just a fucking little arsehole as well. I mean, he caused so much drama in AEW as well with Andrade and Eddie Kingston. But probably because Jericho likes him, and Jericho has a lot of influence with Tony Khan. Tony Khan keeps pushing Sammy Guevara, pushing him as one of the future pillars of the company. And if Sammy Guevara is the future of AEW, I don't feel too good about the future of the AEW. Let's just put it that way. Then underrated wrestler, for me, and it's more so by the company than the fans, I would say Chad Gable. I would say by the company because I think most fans realise how good Chad Gable is. But I feel like WWE's never really saw in Chad Gable what most of us have done. I think Chad Gable, unbelievable athlete. I mean, come on, he was Olympic wrestler, right? So obviously the guy's got athletic ability. I mean, that's not even calling it into question. He's a tremendous athlete. He's developed into an excellent wrestler in his time in the business. Pretty good charisma. I wouldn't say he's tremendous. Oh, no, actually, no, fuck it, I take that back. I'll say he is great on the microphone, actually. And yes, he's short, but obviously after he's legitimate. I mean, I think he's believed because of his amateur background and all that, and he looks like an athlete, so he's not like a short, skinny guy. He actually has a good athletic body and all that. And with his amateur background, Chad Gable could probably beat up a lot of people on the main roster in real life. And I think he's got the credibility. But it's never really got a big push in WWE. And to be fair, the fact he fucking survived Shorty G and that didn't ruin his career, that's a credit to him, to be fair. Shorty G probably should have ruined his career, but it didn't. He actually did alright out of it. And then I would say, underrated by the fans, I would say Madcap Moss. I mean, this is a guy, I think he's good. I actually do think he's got something about him. Do I think he's going to be a main eventer? No, I think he's got a ceiling. I don't think he's going to be like a world champion, but he's improved a lot over last year. He definitely has. I mean, he looks like a star. He's got great charisma. He's an athlete. He's at least good enough in the ring, I would say. He's not like a world class performer or anything like that, but I'll say he's at least pretty good in the ring. So yeah, I'll go Madcap Moss. So we've got 4 more sets of questions, and let's get to it. Now, this is the one I'm going to take the most time on in the whole Q&A. So I'm probably going to take a good 5 minutes answering this question, because I'm finally ready to answer the question. And the questions are from Diesel 101 Raw. Your thoughts on the CM Punk situation. So I'm going to try and give the best answer I can give, because I feel like now we know what's coming and all that sort of thing. So all I'm going to say, right, CM Punk is my favourite wrestler like since early adult years, so 1920. That doesn't change. My opinions on CM Punk the performer, not changed. I love the guy's work, big fan of him, but what has happened? It's a really, really sad end, really. I just, like, what was he doing? He just had a complete fucking meltdown, didn't he? I mean, CM Punk is so on the wrong here about this. I mean, obviously, we don't know the entire facts about what happened, but CM Punk went on this AEW media scrum, completely buried the company, buried Tony Khan, buried the Young Bucks. If you've got problems, right, fine, but you don't air it in public like that. I mean, do I think CM Punk has some legitimate gripes? Yes. Because for one, I do completely believe that Omega and the Bucks were the ones feeding the information about CM Punk trying to get Colt Cabana fired to Dave Meltzer and all that. And yet I know Meltzer will deny it, but of course Meltzer's going to deny that. Of course he's going to protect his precious Omega and Buck Elite guys. So I think some of the gripes CM Punk had were legitimate, but it's like, what? I think he went the complete wrong way about this. I mean, he completely overshadowed everything on All Out. His match with Moxley, MJF's big return and all that. It's like, what are you doing? Like, seriously, like this was absolutely 100% premeditated what he's doing. He went on this rant about Colt Cabana. No one asked him a question about Colt Cabana, by the way. I've watched it, and none of the reporters asked him a single question about Colt Cabana. Then he goes in this like rant. And then these bosses sat right next to him, and what are you doing, Tony Khan? Why are you letting him do this? And then the whole thing so this whole thing started, right, with that promo that Hangman Page cutting him right before Double or Nothing. And this is what CM Punk's upset about, apparently. Apparently that's what started all this. Comments made by Hangman Page, and I've seen that promo back and I'm like, Phil, are you that thin-skinned? Are you honestly that thin-skinned to be that upset by a promo in the ring by Hangman Page? It's just so straight. It doesn't make sense, because Eddie Kingston and MJF were way more personal with CM Punk on the microphone. Hell, most people don't even remember this. MJF directly mentioned Colt Cabana in one of his promos on CM Punk. So what the hell went up CM Punk's ass to get that upset over the Hangman Page situation? It's like, are you joking me? You're absolutely joking me here. Like, I'm sorry, but what is wrong with you? You're a grown man. You're that upset over a stupid promo, and then this is where I blame Tony Khan. This is where I think that this is the responsibility has got to fall on Tony Khan's shoulders. When CM Punk came back, he went off script and went on a stupid rant about Hangman Page live on Dynamite. And at that point, this is where Tony Khan had to step in. He had to. If Tony Khan should have recognised, right, okay, we've got a problem now. You should have took CM Punk, Hangman Page, and whoever else. I guess the elite guys as well. Sit them down. Goes right. You can't let this happen. What's your problem? We have to sort this out. So I think Tony Khan's absolute failure to nip the problems in the bud right there. If Tony Khan had nipped the problems in the bud right there, maybe things would have been different. So then he's going on this huge rant, like, what are you doing? Like, and then it just, what makes Tony Khan look so weak. But would, like, Tony Khan sat right next to him. You can see, like, Tony Khan's face. What is happening here? Tony Khan should have shut him up right there and told him to stop it, and that should have been the end of it. But no, Tony Khan enabled CM Punk. He let CM Punk go on and on and on and on. And like I said, it just buried the company. You don't do that. You don't air your dirty laundry publicly. That was just so wrong from CM Punk. I do feel like the guy was so in the wrong here. Honestly, I can't really defend him on this issue at all. Like, much I love CM Punk, I feel like he was so wrong. And as far as the fight goes, I don't know, because who knows? Nobody. I've heard lots of different stories about that. We'll probably never get the facts, because Tony's not going to. I think Tony Khan's getting a lot of unfair criticism on this, how he's not talked about it publicly. But do you not think that Tony Khan's getting advised not to talk about it because there's the legal ramifications and all that? Tony Khan isn't going to talk about it. Bucks and Omega, while they're there, aren't going to talk about it. They probably work something out where CM Punk has a gag order so he can't talk about it publicly. And then Punk just provoked and provoked and provoked. It's a sad end, isn't it? It's a sad end that CM Punk just couldn't leave his ego and he's got his sensitive ego at the door and just do what was right for business. CM Punk had to be the centre of attention again. And it's becoming a pattern now, isn't it? I mean, I think you just got to accept CM Punk is going to be CM Punk. And I've come to the conclusion that CM Punk's probably never going to be truly happy. Because I think he's the sort of person who's never ever going to be satisfied with what he has. He's always going to want more. And just like, what you doing, mate? Just come on. You can't bury your company when your boss is sat right next to you in a media scrum like that. Do you think CM Punk would have behaved that way if he was in WWE? Not publicly, no. I just don't think he would have done that. I mean, so, and then as far as because I think Tony Khan showed he's not a strong leader here. He should have sorted this situation out before it became a situation. He didn't, and it's just a sad end, isn't it? Because you think CM Punk's done with AEW, isn't he? I mean, from all accounts, there's rumours going around that AEW is trying to arrange a buyout of CM Punk's contract and all that. It's just a sad end. It's really sad end, because up until the first match with Hangman Page, Double or Nothing, CM Punk's AEW run was awesome. He was back, he was cutting great promos, he was having great matches, and then it just went sour like that, like so quickly. It's just so sad. Honestly, I just feel really bad about it. And hopefully, I think Tony Khan's got to try and move on from this situation best he can, and I hope he learns from this situation. Hope he's learned a lot about himself as a promoter from this situation, that these mistakes cannot happen again. And it's just sad. I mean, I love CM Punk. I love the fact he came back to wrestling, the feud of MGF, and it just really hurts me that it ended this way. But I just can't defend CM Punk's behaviour in this situation. I really can't. So the next question: how awesome would it be if the Elite versus the Club? If the Elite came to WWE, that would be good, but that definitely would not be the match I would do, because I've got no interest in Gallows and Anderson. If the Elite did come in hypothetically, I'd say the real money is the Elite versus the Bloodline. That's a match. If the Elite ever had a match in WWE, it would be Elite versus Roman Reigns and the Usos. That would be the match to do. Failing that, versus Imperium. Oh my God, that would be something as well. And even the New Day over. I would even, but I think. Because I think we might be too long in the game now for AJ Styles and Kenny Omega to have a big match. To be honest with you, because I think AJ Styles he's had his run now and he's just kind of having fun winding his career down. But for me, the Elite versus the Bloodline would be the match. Do you think that Bryan Danielson will be the most over guy in AEW one day? If they push Bryan Danielson as number one guy, I think so. I think at times because I look like. Yeah, because I think with CM Punk gone now, CM Punk was the almost over guy in the roster. Then you had Hangman Page as well. But now I think now it's Moxley and maybe MGF. I think Bryan Danielson could be the most over guy in AEW, but they haven't really pushed Danielson as the guy, and they're probably not going to. We got another question about us later on, so there we go. Then in a similar vein, am I the one who hated the finish of Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega? I think it should have ended with Bryan having Kenny Omega in the label block, considering tap, then boom, time runs out. I would disagree. I mean, obviously, you're not the only. I'm sure you're not the only one who hated it. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people agree with you, but I disagree with you. I actually liked the way they did it because I feel like that finish. Do you know, like when someone either has a pin and it goes 1, 2, and then the time runs out, or in this situation you talk about where someone has someone in a submission move and the time runs out. It's such an overdone, cliched finish over the years that I just don't really want to see it anymore. Like obviously wrestling's not real, we know that, but if this happens over and over again, it's just kind of it just kind of tells you outright that this isn't real. So yeah, I honestly find that the babyface would have won if the time hadn't run out finish to be a bit redundant now, and I'm sick of it. And I actually, because I think doing it the way they did actually made it feel a little bit more real. So I'm going to have to disagree with you on this one. There we go. Okay, let's go. So let's say WrestleMania 29, we've got CM Punk versus Stone Cold. The Rock versus Brock Lesnar, Undertaker versus John Cena. Who is Triple H face? I'm actually going to give you credit for this one, Mr. Diesel, because I remember this like years ago, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. You actually came up with this idea, and I think it was a good one. So Triple H and the New Age Outlaws to face the Shield. I'm pretty sure that was your booking idea at the time, and yeah, so that's the one I would go with. Triple H feud of the Shield. He brings back the New Age Outlaws to help him fight the Shield, and that would have been a big match. The Attitude Era stars and Triple H and the Outlaws and DX getting beat off the young upstarts of the Shield at the time. My God, would that... Honestly, if that had happened to WrestleMania, Punk, Austin, Rock Lesnar, Taker, Cena, Triple H and Outlaws versus the Shield, we're talking about one of the all-time great WrestleManias there. So we got 3 more sets of questions. We've got Stephen Taylor. Am I the only one who stands with CM Punk? Well, I'm sure you're not the only one. I'm sure there's people inside of CM Punk with the situation, but I'm not one of them. I'm sorry. I love CM Punk. I love his work and all that. Big fan. But I just can't agree with his behaviour in this situation. I feel like he was so wrong in what he did and how he conducted himself. So I'm just sorry about that. Will Bryan Danielson be the AEW champion one day? Yeah, I think so. Because I think there will come a time where either someone... Because I kind of feel like Danielson's content not to be the champion. I feel like Danielson just wants to have good matches and have fun. I think it's Bryan Danielson fans that are more concerned about Bryan being the champion more than he is. But I think there'll be a situation where someone gets injured or someone gets suspended or whatever. There's going to be a situation where AEW is in a jam and they need someone to hold the title for a while, a safe pair of hands. And I think in that instance, Bryan would be the right guy. I mean, I would have been happy enough if he'd won the title instead of Moxley. You know, getting Danielson versus MGF at Full Game instead of Moxley, but we didn't get that. But yeah, I think at some point, Danielson will have at least one reign as AEW champion. It'd be nice though, wouldn't it? You think Shawn Michaels will make a Royal Rumble surprise entrant? I mean, it is in San Antonio, Texas. No, I don't think so, and I don't really care to see him do that either. From what I can gather, Shawn Michaels regrets coming back for that Saudi Arabia match. And don't worry, Shawn, we all regret you coming back for that match. And from what I can gather, Shawn Michaels has no desire to ever get back in the ring again. So yeah, I don't particularly want to see it, and I just don't think it's going to happen, to be honest. Now, a couple of interesting ones here. What dream match would you rather see? Kurt Angle versus Bryan Danielson in 2006, or Sting versus Shawn Michaels in 2008? Two awesome dream matches, but God, I would have loved Danielson versus Angle 2006. So say that Kurt Angle doesn't go to TNA right away. Kurt Angle maybe has a 3-month run in Ring of Honor, and then maybe joins TNA in 2006. So back when Danielson was the world champion, what if on one of the big shows, Kurt Angle came into Ring of Honor to have a Ring of Honor title match with Bryan Danielson? Oh my word. That match would have been unbelievable. Probably one of the best matches ever, to be quite honest. I mean, obviously at the time, Danielson was doing amazing work as Ring of Honor champion. Kurt Angle had just come off WWE. Oh, it would have been a classic. Not that Sting and Michaels wouldn't have been amazing as well, but you're giving me two amazing options here, so I've got to go with Danielson versus Angle. This is a really interesting match, and really interesting question. I really like this question. Who would have got a better match out of the Ultimate Warrior? Bret Hart in 1993 or Shawn Michaels in 1996? Oh, that's an interesting question. And I bet most of you are expecting a biased answer in me saying Bret Hart. However, you're wrong. I think Shawn Michaels in 1996, and here's why. I feel like in 1993, Bret would have wanted to have more of a wrestling match, like technical wrestling match with the Ultimate Warrior, and I don't think that would have suited Warrior's style at all. I think it would have been, this might have been a good match, but I think it would have been a slightly awkward style of clashes. I just don't think Warrior's, I'm the Ultimate Warrior, beating his chest and all that style would have fit and meshed too well with Bret's technical wrestling ability. But I'm thinking, because Shawn Michaels is a smaller, more nimble athlete, the way Shawn Michaels would bounce around a lot and utilise the Ultimate Warrior's strengths and power and have that sort of match. I think it'd have a similar match with Warrior to the match he had with Sid at Survivor Series 1996. Maybe not quite as good as the Sid match, but I feel like Shawn would have bumped around like a maniac, selling all the Warriors' offense, and Shawn Michaels would have done the majority of the work. I think Shawn Michaels would have done a better job of making the Warrior look good than Bret did, and that's an interesting one. So I've got to go with Shawn Michaels over that one. Then we've got Mr. Beetle 890, most underrated European champion. That's an interesting question, because I had to think about it. I think for the most part, most European champions are being rated correctly. You think of the good ones, British Bulldog, D'Lo Brown, William Regal, none of them really underrated. So I'll say X-Pac to a certain extent. He was a good champion in late 98, early 99. I think he did a pretty good job with the belt. I think Christian in 2001 into 2002 is a pretty decent shout. Because at that point, the European title didn't really mean much at all. But I feel like Christian did a pretty good job as champion in that time period. As brief as it was, DDP was kind of an alright European champion as well. Matt Hardy, maybe, in 2001. So if I had to pick, I'd probably go with Christian at the end of 2001 into early 2002. There we go. Okay, so would you like the idea of Money in the Bank split over 2 nights at Wrestle? Okay, so we're going to go back to something I talked about before. So the idea of Money in the Bank split over 2 nights at WrestleMania, 1 match men's and 1 women's match. So I personally would like to see Money in the Bank retired now, because I just feel like it's just so redundant at this point. Honestly, ever since like Seth Rollins cashed in that 2015, so God, 7 years ago, I feel like Money in the Bank's gone rapidly downhill since then. Like honestly, since then, how many successful Money in the Bank stories can you remember? Ambrose one was so-so, it was fine. Obviously Corbin failed to cash in, Strowman failed to cash in. Then Brock Lesnar, that was terrible. Otis was so bad Otis was so bad they had to switch to the Miz. Big E was moderately successful, I suppose. Then obviously the latest one, Austin Theory, fucking it up. However, if Money in the Bank is continuing, which I'm assuming it would, if the choice was, would keep the Money in the Bank pay-per-view or return Money in the Bank to WrestleMania, I would rather return Money in the Bank to WrestleMania, especially now you've got 2 nights. you can have one on each night, and then it gets certain people on the card. We've all having to book more matches. So if I had my choice, if that was a choice, keep the Money in the Bank pay-per-view or put Money in the Bank back to WrestleMania, it would be put it back to WrestleMania. Now we've got a similar WrestleMania theme. Is Bianca versus Belair versus Charlotte the match to do for the Raw Women's title at WrestleMania next year? Yeah, I think so. And I think Bianca versus Rhea Ripley would be nice, but I'm thinking, what do you do with Charlotte now? And who else do you give to Bianca? Because I think Bianca's probably going to go to WrestleMania still the champion now. Because I think if she was going to lose it, she would have lost it. She would have lost it to Bayley like recently, but that's not going to happen. So there's not that many big women's matches left. I know Charlotte and Bianca, they have wrestled on NXT in 2019. Don't think they wrestled on the main roster. I could be wrong, and I'm sure if I'm wrong, someone can correct me. But I don't think Charlotte versus Bianca Belair has happened on the main roster. And there's very few big first-time main roster matches left. And let's face it, a lot of people don't like Charlotte Flair. That's fine, but she's a star. She's a massive star and all that. And it's good. So yeah, I would think. And let's face it, Bianca's already faced and beaten all the other 4 horsewomen: Sasha, Becky, Bayley. There's one horsewoman left that she hasn't conquered, and that's Charlotte Flair. And that would kind of be an interesting story. So I think that's a good WrestleMania match to do. So presumably you switch Becky and Charlotte. When Becky goes to SmackDown, Charlotte comes back to Raw, and that's how we get round it. And then we got, if WWE implemented King of the Ring as a pay-per-view, who would you like to see King and Queen of the Ring in 2023? If they did, I don't really want them to, but if they did, I would say LA Knight would be a great choice. I just feel like, I think it has to be a heel, because most King of the Ring winners have been heels, because I think it fits the King gimmick and all that. Finn Balor is a possible choice. So I'll say either Finn Balor or LA Knight would be great. I'd like to see LA Knight. Then for the women, I would probably go, I think Rhea Ripley will be a good choice. I don't want to be any of the 4 horsewomen, because I feel like neither of them need it. Bianca Belair's strong. Rhea Ripley needs something, and that could be really good for her to become Queen Ripley or whatever. Okay, so here's a good question. In your opinion, who's the most overrated tag team of all time? So this one might get me some dislike, but honestly, the New Day. Honestly, the New Day. I mean, I've seen lists where people have listed the New Day as the greatest tag team of all time. And in reality, they were a top team in a fairly weak tag team division. If we go on modern, honestly, I would say the Usos are far better than the New Day. I like the Usos much more than I like the New Day, you know. Much bigger fan of the Usos, than being completely honest about it. I feel like the Usos have managed to stay fresh over the years, change the style up. New Day has essentially been doing the same thing for like 8 years now, and the act wore thin of me about 4 or 5 years ago, but they're still doing it. I think the strange thing is the act's so childish and annoying, but fans haven't turned on it. They're still over as hell. The fans, I don't really know why. The most fans not say the act was still a long time ago. Honestly, I'll say the New Day. Then the last question, it's a very simple one. Wrestling pay-per-view results. What is your favourite pay-per-view? Mine is WrestleMania 9. Okay. Strange choice, WrestleMania 9, but if that's your opinion, fine. But I want to give a simple answer, really, and because I've mentioned it many times in the past, I don't want to go into too much detail. WrestleMania 17. So much nostalgia, like as a 14-year-old watching that show for the last 21 years. I've never seen a wrestling show I've enjoyed more than WrestleMania 17. I mean, it's a classic. It really is a classic. And for me, the greatest pay-per-view and my favourite of all time. And that's a wrap, guys. Just over 2 hours into this video. So thanks you guys for watching. And until next time, peace.